The old space station floated alone in the darkness, looking like a giant glass castle among the stars. Its crystal walls had once sparkled with life, but now they were dim and empty. This was the Dragon Archive, a place most people had forgotten about. Dr. Keisha walked slowly through the quiet hallways, her footsteps echoing in the silence. Behind her, 12-year-old Zara clutched her favorite book and looked around with wide, curious eyes. The walls were covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly, like dying fireflies. "Why did everyone leave this place, Mom?" Zara whispered, her voice small in the vast emptiness. Her mother sighed. "They said there was nothing left to discover here. The last dragon stopped talking to anyone years ago." "Dragons are real?" Zara's eyes grew even wider. "Not the kind from your storybooks, honey. These dragons are ancient beings older than human civilization. They're living libraries that store the memories of entire worlds." They walked deeper into the station until they reached a massive chamber with a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadows. And there, in the center of the room, lay the most incredible sight Zara had ever seen. The dragon was enormous, easily the size of 3 school buses lined up end to end. His body was covered in what looked like crystal scales that barely glowed with inner light. His massive head rested on the floor, eyes closed, breathing so slowly that each breath took nearly a minute. Signs in different alien languages surrounded his sleeping form. Keisha read one of them aloud: "Communication impossible without neural interface technology." "What does that mean?" Zara asked. "It means other alien species tried to talk to him using machines that connect directly to the brain. But humans don't have that technology. Everyone assumed that meant we couldn't talk to dragons at all." Zara walked closer to the sleeping giant. Something about him made her heart hurt. He looked so lonely lying there all by himself. "He's sad," she said softly. "Dragons don't feel emotions like we do, sweetheart. They're more like incredibly advanced computers." But Zara wasn't listening to her mother anymore. She sat down cross-legged right next to the dragon's enormous head, opened her book and began to read in a clear, gentle voice. "Once upon a time, there was a boy who lived in a cupboard under the stairs and didn't know he was famous throughout the magical world." Her voice echoed in the empty chamber, the first human voice the dragon had heard in decades. As Zara read about wizards and magic schools, something impossible happened. One of the dragon's crystal scales flickered. Just for a second, but it definitely flickered. Keisha was busy setting up her research equipment and didn't notice. But Zara saw it and she smiled. She kept reading, her voice growing more confident with each page. The dragon's name was Vorthak, though no one had spoken it in 50 years. He had been sleeping for so long that he had almost forgotten what it felt like to be awake. Other species had tried to access his memories using cold, digital connections that felt like ice touching his consciousness. They wanted information, data, facts and figures. But this was different. This small human child wasn't trying to download anything from his mind. She was simply sharing something beautiful, and her voice carried emotions he had almost forgotten existed. Wonder, excitement, joy. Deep in his ancient mind, something that had been dormant for decades began to stir. The child's voice had rhythm and music in it. It rose and fell like ocean waves, speeding up during exciting parts and slowing down during quiet moments. It was alive in a way that digital communication could never be. As Zara continued reading about the young wizard's adventures, more of Vorthak's scales began to pulse with gentle light. The patterns reminded Keisha of a heartbeat, steady and reassuring. "That's strange," she muttered, checking her instruments. "I'm getting energy readings I've never seen before." Zara looked up from her book. "Mom, I think he's listening." "Honey, dragons don't understand human language. They communicate through direct neural links." But even as she said it, Keisha noticed that her daughter was right. The dragon's breathing had changed, becoming more alert. And those glowing scales were definitely pulsing in rhythm with Zara's reading. "Maybe," Zara said, turning back to her book, "nobody ever tried just talking to him before." She continued reading, and with each word, the ancient dragon's consciousness grew brighter. For the first time in 50 years, Vorthak began to remember what it felt like to truly live. For 3 straight days, Zara returned to the dragon's chamber with a new book each time. She read adventure stories about brave knights, fairy tales about magical kingdoms, and even her school reports about ancient Earth history. Each day, the dragon's scales glowed a little brighter, and his breathing became more steady and strong. On the 4th morning, something amazing happened that changed everything. Tyler, the station's maintenance engineer, was running his daily checks on the life support systems when his computer screen suddenly went crazy. Numbers were flashing everywhere, and warning bells started ringing throughout the station. "Dr. Williams? You need to get down here right now," he shouted over the intercom. "The dragon's vital signs are going through the roof." Keisha dropped her research notes and ran toward the central chamber, her heart pounding. She found Zara sitting in her usual spot, completely calm and reading from a thick book about a secret garden that bloomed back to life. "Zara, get away from him right now," Keisha called out, but then she stopped dead in her tracks. The dragon was awake. One massive eye, deep and swirling like a galaxy full of stars, was open and focused directly on her daughter. The crystal scales across his entire body pulsed with waves of soft, colorful light that moved in perfect rhythm with Zara's voice. "Mom, don't worry," Zara said without looking up from her book. "He's not scary. He's just happy to finally have someone to listen to his stories." Tyler burst into the chamber with his tablet full of readings. "This is impossible. The frequency patterns coming from the dragon, they're not like anything in our databases. It's almost like music," Keisha whispered, understanding flooding through her mind. She watched in amazement as the light patterns on the dragon's scales danced and swirled, creating beautiful shapes that seemed to tell stories of their own. Every time Zara's voice rose with excitement during an action scene, the lights grew brighter. When she read softly during sad parts, the colors became gentle and warm. "Other alien species communicate through direct computer connections," Keisha said slowly, pieces of the puzzle clicking together in her mind. "They send information in digital packets like emails. But humans, we've always communicated through speech, through stories, through the rise and fall of our voices. And dragons speak in music," Zara added, still reading but smiling now. "They understand the feelings behind the words, not just the words themselves. That's when they heard it. Not with their ears, but somehow directly in their minds. A voice older than human civilization, deep and warm like summer thunder rolling across distant mountains." Finally, the voice said, filled with relief and joy, "Someone who speaks the ancient language of stories." Tyler nearly dropped his tablet. "Did that dragon just talk to us telepathically?" "Not telepathy exactly," the dragon's voice continued, and they could somehow sense his amusement. "Your species has something very special. When you speak, especially when you tell stories, you create vibrations that reach beyond mere sound. You touch the realm where memories live." Zara closed her book and looked directly into the dragon's enormous eye. "You weren't sleeping, were you? You were lonely. For 50 years, child of Earth, I have been fading away. Not dying in the way your people understand death, but forgetting. Forgetting what it means to share knowledge, to pass on wisdom, to keep the memories of countless worlds alive." Keisha stepped closer, her scientific mind racing. "The other species that came here, they were trying to download information from you like you were a computer. They sought data," the dragon agreed sadly. "Facts and figures, star charts and technical specifications. But they could never understand that true knowledge is more than information. Knowledge lives in stories, in the emotions that give facts meaning, in the connections between one truth and another. Like how a recipe isn't just ingredients and temperatures," Zara said thoughtfully. "It's also about the love you put into cooking and the memories you make sharing the food with people you care about." "Exactly." The dragon's scales blazed with excited light. "Your people have kept something alive that all other advanced species lost long ago. You still understand that wisdom must be felt to be truly learned, that knowledge without context is just noise." Tyler was frantically taking notes on his tablet. "Dr. Williams, if this is true, then humans might be the only species in the galaxy that can actually communicate with dragons properly. Which means," Keisha said, her voice filled with wonder, "we might be the only ones who can help save whatever knowledge they've been protecting all these years." The dragon's great eye blinked slowly, and they could sense his hope growing stronger. "Will you help me remember how to truly live again, young storyteller?" Zara smiled and picked up another book from her stack. "I have lots more stories to share." The next morning, Zara arrived at the dragon's chamber with her arms full of books. She had raided the station's small library and even downloaded some stories from Earth's databases. But when she sat down beside Vortak, she noticed something different about his glowing scales. The patterns were more complex now, swirling and shifting like living artwork. "You look brighter today," she said, opening her first book. "Because yesterday, for the first time in decades, I remembered what it feels like to truly share knowledge." Vortak's warm voice filled her mind. "But before you begin reading, child, I must show you something important." The dragon's scales suddenly blazed with brilliant light, and the entire chamber filled with images that seemed to float in the air like holograms. Zara gasped as she saw alien cities with towers that twisted toward purple skies, creatures that looked like walking trees sharing songs under twin moons, and beings made of pure energy dancing between the stars. "What is all this?" she whispered. "These are memories, little storyteller. Not just my memories, but the living essence of every civilization that ever reached for the stars and found wisdom among them." Keisha and Tyler rushed into the chamber, drawn by the incredible light show. They stood speechless as the floating images showed them wonders beyond imagination. The Zenari built cities inside waterfalls and wrote poetry with liquid light, Vorthak explained as the images shifted. The Kethmori were explorers who mapped black holes and sang lullabies to calm newborn stars. The Velans were healers who could cure sadness itself. All these species, Keisha breathed. They're extinct now. Their bodies are gone, but their souls live on in story form within dragons like myself. We are not just libraries, Dr. Williams. We are the living memory of the galaxy, the keepers of dreams and hopes and all the beautiful ways different beings learn to love life. The images began to fade and Vorthak's voice grew sad. But memories without storytellers are like songs without singers. They become silent, forgotten, meaningless. For 50 years I have been watching the stories die inside me one by one. Zara jumped to her feet, clutching her book tightly. But that's not going to happen anymore. I'm here now and I love stories more than anything. It is not that simple, dear child, Vorthak said gently. I am very old and my body grows weaker each day. Soon I will join the beings whose memories I carry, and when I die 10,000 civilizations worth of stories will die with me. No. Zara shook her head firmly. There has to be a way to save them. Tyler was studying his instruments with growing excitement. Dr. Williams, look at these readings. When the dragon was showing us those memory images, the energy patterns were incredible. It's like he was transferring actual information through pure storytelling. That's because story and memory are the same thing, Vorthak explained. When your daughter reads to me, she doesn't just share human tales. She creates a bridge between her mind and mine, and across that bridge the ancient memories can flow and find new life. Keisha's eyes widened as she understood. You're saying that humans can actually absorb and carry forward these alien memories by listening to them as stories? More than that, the dragon's voice grew stronger. Your species has something unique in the galaxy. You still practice the ancient art of oral tradition. You understand instinctively that knowledge must be wrapped in emotion, that wisdom needs a heartbeat to stay alive. Zara sat back down and opened her book. So every time I read to you, I'm helping keep these memories alive? And every time you learn one of their stories and retell it in your own words, you become a keeper of their legacy. But there are so many memories, child, and I am just one dragon. Even if you spent every day for the rest of your life learning them, you could only save a small fraction. Suddenly, Tyler slammed his tablet down with excitement. Wait, Dr. Williams, what if we're thinking about this all wrong? What if Zara isn't the only human who can do this? What do you mean? Think about it. Every human culture on Earth has its own storytelling traditions. African griots, Irish bards, Native American oral historians, Chinese storytellers. What if different types of human storytelling can unlock different types of alien memories? Vorthak's scales suddenly blazed with hope. Tyler of the Engineering Guild speaks wisdom. Different civilizations expressed their deepest truths in different ways. Some sang their histories, others painted them, still others danced them into being. So we need more storytellers, Zara said, her voice growing excited. Lots more. We need to contact Earth immediately, Keisha said, already reaching for her communication device. If humanity can really save these memories, then this is bigger than just first contact. This is about preserving the cultural heritage of the entire galaxy. Vorthak's great eye fixed on Zara with infinite gratitude. You have given me the greatest gift imaginable, young storyteller. You have given me hope that the voices of the ancients will not be silenced forever. Zara smiled and opened her book to the first page. Then let's get started on saving the universe, one story at a time. Within 2 weeks of Dr. Keisha's urgent message to Earth, the Dragon Archive transformed from a forgotten outpost into the busiest station in human space. Ships arrived daily, carrying storytellers from every corner of human civilization. The empty halls that had been silent for decades now echoed with dozens of different languages and singing voices. Zara watched in amazement as her quiet reading spot became the center of something incredible. An elderly woman named Grandmother Rose from the Cherokee Nation sat near Vorthak's tail, chanting ancient creation stories in her native language. Across the chamber, A young man named Kofi from Ghana told traditional Anansi tales that made the dragon's scales pulse with golden light. It's working, isn't it? Zara asked Vorthak as she settled down for their daily reading session. Beyond my wildest dreams, little storyteller, the dragon's mental voice was stronger than ever. Each human storytelling tradition is like a different key, unlocking memories I thought were lost forever. The proof was everywhere. When Grandmother Rose sang about the first fire, Vorthak's scales showed images of the Parathi, a civilization that lived inside stars and treated light itself as sacred. When Kofi told his clever spider stories, memories awakened of the web builders, beings who connected distant worlds through networks of living energy. Tyler barely slept anymore, too excited by all the data he was collecting. Dr. Williams, you need to see this, he called out, waving his tablet. Remember how we thought Vorthak was the last dragon? Well, we were wrong. Very wrong. He showed them readings from the station's deep space sensors. Every time someone tells a story here, it sends out some kind of signal. And something is answering back. What do you mean answering back? Keisha asked. Dragons document dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. They're scattered across the galaxy on forgotten worlds and abandoned space stations, and they're all starting to wake up. Vorthak's entire body shimmered with excitement. The great network stirs. For the first time in centuries, my brothers and sisters are remembering how to live. Within days, reports started flooding in from human colonies throughout space. On New Terra, miners had discovered a crystal cave system that turned out to be a sleeping dragon who responded to Irish ballads. On the agricultural world of Haven, a dragon hidden in an underwater trench began glowing when children sang lullabies their great-grandmothers had brought from Earth. But the most amazing discovery came from Captain Lisa Chen aboard the exploration vessel Star Wanderer. Her ship had been investigating an ancient derelict when her communications officer, Ahmed, started singing an Arabic poem during his break. The entire derelict had suddenly come to life, revealing itself to be a massive dragon who had been drifting in space for over 1,000 years. The beautiful thing, Zara told her mother while watching the bustling activity around them, is that we're not just waking them up. We're learning things too. She was right. Each awakened dragon shared knowledge that revolutionized human understanding of the universe. The dragon on New Terra taught the miners how to extract metals without harming planets. The underwater dragon on Haven showed farmers how to grow crops that could feed twice as many people using half the water. It's not just about saving their memories, Grandmother Rose explained during one of their evening gatherings. We're creating something new. A partnership between human stories and alien wisdom. Kofi nodded enthusiastically. In my culture we say that stories are living things. When you tell a story it grows and changes, becoming part of both the teller and the listener. That's exactly what's happening here, Vorthak confirmed. Your human stories are breathing new life into ancient memories, while our memories are enriching your understanding of what it means to reach for the stars. The network grew stronger every day. Dragons who hadn't communicated with each other in millennia began sharing memories across vast distances. Human storytellers found they could sense these exchanges, like catching fragments of the most beautiful songs ever created. Tyler discovered that when multiple storytellers worked together, they could unlock even deeper memories. A group consisting of a Russian folktale keeper, an Aboriginal Australian Dreamtime storyteller, and a Mexican corrido singer managed to awaken memories of civilizations so ancient that even Vorthak had thought they were myths. We're not just preserving the past, Keisha realized as she compiled her reports for Earth Command. We're building bridges. Every story shared creates connections between species, between worlds, between different ways of understanding life itself. As night fell over the station, Zara curled up with her latest book, surrounded by voices speaking in dozens of languages. Above them all, Vorthak's scales painted the chamber walls with swirling galaxies of light, each pattern representing memories being reborn through the simple, powerful act of humans doing what they had always done best, telling stories that mattered. Tomorrow, Vorthak whispered to all the storytellers at once, I will teach you how to sing with the voices of stars. 6 months later, the Dragon Archive had become something no one could have imagined. What started as a dying space station was now the heart of a living network that stretched across the entire galaxy. Hundreds of storytellers from Earth had made it their permanent home, and every day brought new discoveries. Zara had grown taller and more confident, but she still kept her special spot next to Vorthak's great head. The dragon's scales now blazed with constant, shifting patterns of light that painted stories across the chamber walls in colors that didn't even have names in human language. Look at this, Mom, Zara called out excitedly, pointing to her tablet. Remember the dragon on Kepler station that Captain Rodriguez found last month? The storytellers there just helped him remember an entire civilization that lived inside gas giant planets. They're sharing the memory with dragons all across the sector. Dr. Keisha smiled as she watched her daughter coordinate with storytellers on 12 different worlds. You've become quite the expert at this, haven't you? We all have, said Grandmother Rose, who was teaching a group of young storytellers how to weave Cherokee wisdom into their tales. But the most amazing thing isn't what we're learning from the dragons. It's what we're teaching them. She was right. The dragons weren't just sharing their ancient memories anymore. They were creating new ones, filled with human hopes and dreams and the strange, wonderful ways that humans looked at the universe. Vortak's warm voice filled their minds. For millions of years, we dragons believed that knowledge was something to be preserved, protected, kept safe from change. But your people have shown us that knowledge is meant to grow, to evolve, to become something greater than what it was. Tyler, now the Archive's chief coordinator, was busy managing communication with over 300 awakened dragons across human space. The network is completely stable now, he reported. And the energy output is incredible. Some of the dragons are even starting to heal from centuries of dormancy. This was true everywhere humans had found dragons. The ancient beings weren't just waking up. They were becoming stronger, healthier, more alive than they had been in thousands of years. The act of sharing stories was literally bringing them back to life. But the real miracle was what was happening to the humans involved. Kofi had started incorporating dragon memories into his traditional Ghanaian stories, creating tales that could make listeners understand what it felt like to fly between stars. A young woman named Luna from Mexico was teaching dragons how to laugh, something they had forgotten how to do eons ago. An old fisherman named Oscar from Norway discovered he could help dragons remember what oceans felt like, since most of them had forgotten the sensation of water. We're not just preserving old knowledge, Zara explained to a group of new arrivals from Earth. We're creating something completely new. Every time we share a human story with a dragon, and every time they share an alien memory with us, we're building bridges between completely different ways of thinking. The proof was all around them. Human colonies were using dragon-taught technologies to heal damaged planets. Dragons were learning human concepts like hope and humor that were making their ancient knowledge more alive and meaningful. Most importantly, both species were discovering that the universe was far more interesting when experienced together. Vortak's scales pulsed with deep contentment as evening approached. There is something I must tell you all, he said, his mental voice reaching every human on the station. When I was alone and fading, I believed my purpose was simply to preserve the memories of the past. But you have taught me that my true purpose is far greater. The lights in the chamber dimmed as the dragon's scales began showing new patterns, not memories of ancient civilizations, but visions of possible futures where humans and dragons work together to explore the deepest mysteries of existence. We are no longer just the keepers of what was, Vortak continued. Together we have become the authors of what could be. Zara opened her newest book, a collection of stories written by humans and dragons working together. These weren't tales of the past, but dreams of tomorrow, stories about species learning to understand each other, about wisdom growing stronger when shared, about the incredible things that could happen when very different minds chose to work as one. Tonight, she announced to the chamber full of storytellers, I'm going to read about a species that looked up at the stars and decided to make friends with dragons. And about how they discovered that the best stories aren't about what happened, but about what's still possible when different kinds of people choose to care about each other. Vortak's scales brightened with joy. Tell us, young storyteller, about the humans who saved the universe by doing what they do best, sharing stories that help everyone remember why life is worth living. And as Zara began to read, her voice joined hundreds of others across the galaxy, all of them part of something beautiful and eternal, a living library where every story made the universe a little bit brighter.